Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a relocation story that is just incredibly high stakes and really personal.
It's quite a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
We're following a father, Mr. Zhao, from Wuhan in China. And he came to this decision that the only way to get the future he wanted for his 12-year-old son was to pack up and move them to Tokyo.
And it sounds, like just a move across the sea, but this was a massive leap. Administratively, sure, but also philosophically.
Right.
He wasn't just looking for, a change of scenery. He was really chasing this dream of high-level sports for his son, but without the intense pressure of the academic track back home.
Exactly. And our source material really digs into that tension. Mr. Zhao, he built a small business after working in the electricity sector.
In Hankook.
In Hankook. And he pulls the trigger on this move in April 2023. His son, who was born in late 2011, was right at that pivot point about to start junior high, 7th grade in Japan.
And you can really feel why he was so compelled to do it. I mean, he lays out this powerful critique of the Chinese education system.
What he calls an impossible choice.
A completely zero-sum choice. You either go all in on the academic grind for the Gaokao, or you go all in on professional sports. You pretty much have to sacrifice one for the other.
And he was convinced that other countries, systems abroad, offered a real middle ground.
A place where his son could actually do both.
So that really sets the stage. Our mission in this deep dive is kind of twofold. First, we have to unpack the hidden administrative traps that Mr. Xiao ran into, the real financial and bureaucratic side of this.
And then second, we have to see if it was actually worth it. Did the Japanese youth football scene and the school system deliver on that promise of balancing things out?
The cost versus the reward. Yeah. Because the price of entry was steep, and it all depended on him navigating this bureaucratic minefield.
Huge minefield.
So let's start right there. The beginning of that minefield, the way in was this business management visa, the Jingying Gun. So why Japan, and what was the very first wall he hit?
Well, the choice of Japan was really pragmatic. It was driven by necessity. I mean, the post-pandemic economy had hit his small business in Wuhan pretty hard, so funds were limited.
So Europe was out.
Europe was just not viable, way too expensive. Japan seemed to offer this combination of, high-quality youth sports. It was close by, and the cost barrier was a little bit lower.
But that visa, getting it, is not a simple thing. And the technical details are really where the story is. You have to prove you're starting a real business.
That's the core of it. You need a minimum capital investment. You have to deposit at least 5 million Japanese yen, which is, about 250,000 RMB into a Japanese bank account.
Wow.
And you need a solid business plan, a dedicated office space. Immigration officials are looking for proof that this is a real sustainable business, not just, a backdoor to residency.
It sounds incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And risky.
Right.
So we know Mr. Xiao, he got advice from a net celebrity, A. Eng Hong, and then did what a lot of people do. He used an agent.
And he says he stepped on several small traps. The A-Lisienle.
And this is where the exploitation really kicks in.
It does. The agent takes advantage of the visa's own legal structure. Mr. Xiao says the administrative fees alone were 100,000 RMB right up front.
Okay.
But the real trap was the office and the housing. The visa demands a physical business address to look legit, so the agent charged him double for office rent. 100,000 yen when the market rate was closer to 50,000.
So the agent wasn't just charging for a service, they were actively inflating costs based on a bureaucratic necessity. And housing was the same story.
Exactly the same. It's really the price you pay when you're unfamiliar with the local market and you're dependent on someone. And he recognized it later. He said his sort of bold Wuhan entrepreneurial spirit made him move too fast, and he basically had to pay for his own lack of knowledge, his renzi.
And it isn't just about the money, right? It's the personal risk. He saw other people try and fail at this.
Oh, absolutely. He makes it clear this visa is no guarantee. He knew friends who put in the 5 million yen, paid all the insane fees, submitted their plans, and were still denied Juquan. Rejected by Japanese immigration.
That's 250,000 RMB just gone for nothing.
Gone. And you can't even imagine the emotional toll of that. Risking everything and then just getting rejected at the last minute.
And the risk doesn't even end when you get the visa. He's on his second year now. The first year, maybe they give you a pass if the business isn't making much, but what about the renewal?
That's the thing. You have to keep proving the business is viable. You need a stable income.
Which brings up a whole ethical gray area in this system.
It really does, because the renewal process is strict on paper. But Mr. Xiao says he knows other Chinese nationals who are kind of gaming the system, treating the Jingingen as a long-term residency loophole.
Wait, so how are people renewing for 7 years with, like you said, minimal business revenue and poor Japanese skills? How does that work if there's no real business?
It seems like they're just meeting the bare minimum requirements. They keep the office, they file their taxes, they use legal support, and just keep reapplying. It suggests that while, a thriving business is the ideal, just showing persistent effort can be enough to buy you another year.
It's constant tightrope walk.
A financial and administrative one, yeah. It just shows how desperate people are to get this opportunity for their kids.
Okay, so after all that, the huge initial cost, the constant uncertainty of the visa, what was the payoff? Let's shift gears to what made it all worthwhile. The life his son now has, combining school and competitive football.
And this is where the whole gamble seems to have paid off. The validation, really. His son's reaction after they settled in says everything. He just asked his dad, "Why didn't you bring me here sooner?"
Wow, that's huge. That one quote probably made it all worth it for the father.
I think so.
So tell me about the academic side, that Japanese junior high. How is it structured to allow for this kind of dual focus?
Well, compared to the system in Wuhan that he describes, it's like night and day. First off, the schedule. School is usually over before 4 p.m.
Which immediately frees up the afternoon.
It frees up all those crucial hours for intense, structured training. That just doesn't happen when you're stuck in extra classes or studying until 9 o'clock at night.
And what about the classroom atmosphere itself? It's less rigid, more free-flowing?
Totally. It's much more relaxed. The source highlights that students don't always have to raise their hands to speak. They can just talk and engage in discussions. Teachers tend to be pretty non-interventionist.
It's more about active engagement than just passive listening.
Exactly. And the homework.
The dreaded test prep.
It's so much lighter. That systematic test paper grinding, the Shuhuanzi, that's all geared towards the Gaokao in China. It's just not there in the same way.
So what do they do instead?
It's more about fun, interactive group stuff. He mentioned one time the kids were learning geography by playing games on a map. I mean, that's a world away from just rote memorization.
So that relaxed academic pressure is really the key. It creates the space for the athletic commitment.
It's the precondition.
Okay, so the academics are supportive. But what about the football? He wasn't impressed with the school team at first, was he?
No, not really. The school team was a good starting point, but he knew it wasn't the high-level competitive environment that he'd sacrificed everything for.
So he moved his son.
He did. He moved him to a specialized, independent, local club. And this is where the philosophy and the logistics get really fascinating.
Let's talk about the cost then, because high-level youth sports can be incredibly expensive.
You'd think so, but it's amazingly accessible. The club fee is about 18,000 JPY a month.
Which is about 900 RMB.
Right. And for that, you get 5 training sessions a week, plus another 2 or 3 matches on the weekend. Each session is 2.5 hours long. It's a huge amount of quality time on the pitch for a pretty modest cost.
That is incredible. But the real nugget here is the coaching philosophy, this education over teaching model. What does that look like in practice?
It's all about creating independent thinkers on the field. The coaches, they deliberately stay out of it during the game. They don't bark commands from the sidelines.
Really?
Yeah, they actually encourage the kids to choose their own positions, striker, winger, defender, and to adapt as the game unfolds. The real coaching happens after the match.
So what does that post-match analysis involve?
It's an intense self-reflection. Win or lose, doesn't matter. They gather right after, and the coaches guide them through it. What went wrong, what went right, and this is the crucial part, what decisions they should have made differently.
So they're training them to think critically under pressure.
Exactly. They're reinforcing this idea that you have to think desperately while you run desperately.
That phrase, desperate effort, seems so central to the Japanese game. You see it at the international level.
It defines it. Mr. Shao was just blown away by the intensity. He said the players are running and thinking at full tilt for the entire game. Even in a friendly match, the coaches demand that final whistle effort to the point where kids are cramping up all the time.
And he compared this to the Chinese kids who visit. What did he see?
He said, the Japanese kids might be a little shorter than his son's counterparts in Wuhan, but their competing spirit, their pinjin, is just relentless, through the roof.
So the visiting kids struggle.
Massively. They struggle to keep up with the physical pace and the technical speed of the game. It really suggests that this whole integrated, systemless academic grinding, more focused, self-directed training is actually producing better athletes.
It sounds like it's absolutely delivering. But we have to talk about the personal cost for the father, Mr. Zhao. He's there alone with his son. He's juggling this visa, a new culture.
His life is basically a constant logistical scramble. He's teaching himself Japanese with only 2 months of formal study, and his main focus is on securing a steady income. That's the real sacrifice.
Right, he's studying for a Class 2 driver's license. Why that specific license? What's the strategy there?
That is the key piece of the puzzle. It connects his personal life directly to his visa compliance. A Class 2 license lets you drive commercial vehicles, like a taxi. So given that the business he set up for the visa is probably not making much money, getting a steady salary from a taxi job gives him the financial stability he needs. It proves to immigration he can support himself and his son.
So it strengthens his case for the visa renewal, even if the management business is barely running.
Exactly. It's an incredibly practical move.
It's a powerful illustration of his commitment. I mean, going from a white-collar job in the electricity sector to training to be a taxi driver in a foreign country, just to keep this dream alive.
It's immense.
And what about the language barrier for the broader immigrant community?
He points out that the number of Chinese immigrants in Tokyo is just overwhelming the public services. He mentioned big waves of people from northeast China, from Fujian, and then from the big cities like Beijing and Shanghai.
And the system can't keep up.
Not at all. Public translation services at the district office are swamped, maybe 1 or 2 translators for everyone. It forces people to become self-reliant really fast, paying for private help or just muddling through.
And that expectation of self-sufficiency, it seems to apply to the kids too, which is a huge cultural shift from his life in Wuhan.
Oh, it's a critical difference. He noticed that Japanese kids are expected to get around by themselves, bike, public transit to school, to training from a young age.
Which is so different from the environment he described back home, where parents are driving kids everywhere, managing every minute of their schedule.
Right. It builds independence. And his cultural observations about sportsmanship and public order are also really telling. The behavior of Japanese parents at the matches really stood out.
How so?
It was a total culture shock for him. He describes them as very quiet, very polite. They applaud good plays, but there's no yelling, no blaming players, even after a bad loss.
The focus is just on development.
It's supportive, and the post-game analysis is mandatory no matter what the score was.
And he contrasted that orderliness with his specific memory from Wuhan, the beef noodle line.
Yes. That one anecdote just perfectly sums up why he made the move. He put the orderly Japanese society, where everyone respects cues and rules, right up against this memory of an old man aggressively cutting the line for noodles in Wuhan.
And yelling at anyone who complained.
And yelling at them. His conclusion was that a good environment is, in his words, infectious. That the societal order and respect you see in public spills over onto the football pitch and into the classroom.
And it all benefits his son.
Ultimately, yes.
So now the father sees his role as just providing that opportunity, that platform. And he acknowledged that while he wants his son to remember his Chinese heritage, if his son succeeds and turns 18, the choice of citizenship, that's going to be up to the boy.
He's done the hard part. He paid the price. He built the platform. Now he's letting his son write his own future, free from the system he felt he had to escape.
So to wrap up this deep dive, what really stands out is this incredible trade-off. The father took on these immense financial and administrative risks, navigating visa traps, retraining as a driver, all for one single exchange.
A supportive, balanced, and intensely competitive environment for his son to grow up in.
Exactly, for his holistic development.
I think the defining takeaway for me is that stark systemic contrast. Mr. Zhao traded this rigid, you pick one path in China for Japan's integrated, self-guided, education over teaching model.
And that holistic environment, where independence is really encouraged on and off the field, is delivering exactly what he was looking for.
What seems to be, yeah.
It does. We heard how Japanese culture emphasizes this fierce competition, this critical self-reflection, this adherence to order, whether it's coaches reviewing losses or people just respecting a cue. So if that culture of collective order and self-improvement is so infectious on the pitch and in public, you have to wonder, how much does that same cultural DNA drive success across all levels of Japanese achievement, from sports to economics? It really raises the question of whether individual dreams can only truly flourish when they're supported by that kind of systemic social cohesion.